and that is to become wise and to really understand what it's all about. And the story here on planet Earth, I can't speak for any other situations out in the galaxy because I firmly believe it, the likelihood that there's many, many, many similar planets that are populated with probably similar beings as humans. But our story goes like this, that when God created man, he never intended death to be part of our reality. And then along came this, the story of the serpent and the temptation and what is known as the fall of man, when something happened that displeased God in a very, very profound way, and as a result, the earth was cursed. And God, in a huff, was so angry and upset that he said to himself, which is written for everybody to see, that he actually wished he didn't create man. So whatever we did in that fall was so injurious to him that he repented. That's how it's written. He repented of having created us. But he didn't give up on us, and he put into plan a plan of salvation. He put into the works a plan of salvation, and it is taking a period of time for that plan of salvation to be fulfilled, and it's over a matter of thousands of years. And of course, Jesus was a part of that plan. Now, whatever happened, in all likelihood, it seems to me it was something like a mingling of seed. And in other words, that there was inbreeding with beings that we weren't supposed to be inbreeding with. And we got, this DNA got all mixed up, so this is where the death entered. Because God already had warned humanity at that time that, not to eat from this tree of knowledge of good and evil, whatever that was a metaphor for, or else we would surely die. And of course, the fall of man indicates that we did indeed do what God had told us not to. Our ancestors did, and we ate from that tree of knowledge of good and evil. And then something bad happened, and we did die, not immediately from eating it, as poison would do, but death came into the picture. And, when you really think about it, it's not that hard to imagine the idea that God created beings, human beings, in his image and likeness, to never die. And it just, that you've got to imagine an atomic structure so profoundly superior to the atomic structure our bodies have now that death could not occur. And so some people would say, well, wait a minute, surely we would overpopulate the earth. But understand that God is an all-powerful God, and it is by his will and his decree that we are able to mate and proliferate and populate the earth in the first place. So understanding that it's by his will that the earth was populated, that he is the giver of fertility, then you understand it's as simple as God saying, well, the earth is populated to my satisfaction, and I'm pulling the fertility of man now because I don't want the earth to be overpopulated. But at this point in time, we're a long way from overpopulating the earth. I mean, at least here in California, from what I know, and this is the single most populated state in the Union. It's very, very sparsely populated. I mean, it is just ridiculous. Everybody in this state could probably fit in, a town that right now is populated by 100,000 people. And And we just don't understand that, you know, that 40 million people approximately in California could easily fit in a very small area. In fact, the statistics show that the entire Earth's population could fit in a city the size of Jacksonville, Florida. It doesn't mean we're going to have a whole lot of room, but you know, the point is clear. These are statistical facts that are inarguable. So beyond that, we know how to make artificial land, and beyond that, we know how to make clean water from salt water. We can purify it, desalt through desalinization, and have all the water we need for agriculture or anything else. And you know, so this whole idea that the Earth is overpopulated is just made up fantasy. And my idea is that it was made up by the same ruthless gaggle of murderous thugs that are running the world system right now, because they knew eventually knowledge would reach a point where everybody became aware that, you know, austerity is invented, poverty is intentionally implemented through artificial scarcity. Another word for this is oppression, and they use money as the means for that oppression by withholding sufficient money so everybody can feel prosperous and secure financially, and just reducing the work week as necessary because there's just not the requirement to have so many people working so many hours, that we're able to meet our needs with a far lower work week. And so they knew that we were going to figure all this stuff out eventually, because knowledge is cumulative. In other words, it doesn't ever go away. It just expands and grows and builds on itself, like the snowball effect. It picks up momentum and it has inertia. And this is literally like God working, because the light of truth, knowledge, wisdom, valuable education, learning, all these things are from God. These are good things. And they knew that this was coming to the world eventually, that they would not be able to hide knowledge from the population forever. And so these elitist hypocrites at the top that are running things, this gaggle of murderous thugs again, they had to be ready with a plan, and that plan is this idea that we are overpopulating, and this is causing the destruction of the planet through climate change, global warming, and if the Arctic glaciers melted, then we were going to have real problems, because of course the sea level would rise and communities would be wiped out through these storms and the rising oceans. And this is what we are supposed to be alarmed about. We're supposed to be concerned about what they tell us to be concerned about. And it's all a bunch of lies from the pit of hell, and I'm here to tell you it's all lies from the pit of hell. And anybody that believes Earth is overpopulated needs to get educated, because the Earth could sustain probably 100, 1,000 times as many people, maybe a lot more. And so we all have to understand that there's plentiful, simple solutions to the widespread societal problems, issues that humanity faces. And we must fundamentally understand that the problems are not natural. They are artificial, they are invented, they're created by, again, that same class of murderous thugs that are running roughshod over humanity. And they do this to create chaos and crises, because these issues give them relevance, that they are able to step in and say, well, we've got these problems, we've got poverty. So they set up social welfare systems to deal with the poverty, instead of saying, well, people are free, you take care of yourself. You go and you work with somebody and you get some wood cut and milled, and you build yourself a house, and on a first come, first served basis, wherever you please, which is how it should be. Every other creature, after all, is free to do that same thing. We don't tax a bird for making a nest in your tree, do we? We don't charge it rent or a mortgage. But we humans, of course, we're told that somehow it makes sense for us to do these things. So you've got the poverty industrial complex, and all these people that have these great jobs that are involved in the poverty industrial complex, social welfare services, food stamp offices, Section 8, it goes on and on and on. So they don't have an interest in seeing poverty go away. And if poverty did go away, we've got a whole slew of other problems. And among those problems are crime. You'd see crime plummet. And then you've got the crime industrial complex that would be very unhappy about that. We've got all the law enforcement agencies, and we've got all the court systems, all the judges and bail bondsmen and attorneys, and it goes on and on and on with all these people that have relatively good jobs in the criminal industrial complex, the crime industrial complex. And so also, if you eliminated poverty, you've got you're stepping on the toes of anybody that's invested in the debt industrial complex. Borrowed money. Because after all, if you didn't have poverty, there'd be nobody needing to borrow money. So there'd be no way to indebt people. And I guess we could say war is a problem. And again, the only way you'd get a man to go fight in a war is if it was a just war, and in which case you wouldn't need to pay him, because we're natural born warriors that are willing to put our lives on the line for the right cause and standing against injustice. So you take a clown like Hitler and so many other clowns like Hitler out there, and men would have gone off freely to fight in a war like that. In fact, you probably could have paid, I probably would have paid myself to go and whoop his behind, So we've got to understand how we've all just been trained to believe that this establishment makes sense. Even if you believe it only makes an iota of sense, they've got to keep you on the hook and keep you trusting in them and having faith in the establishment, faith in the system and the representatives therein. But I'm here to tell you not to have an iota of faith in the system. You can't trust these people. Again, I point to the murderous gaggle of thugs at the very top. And at the very top of this pyramid is the money printers. And everybody below them is beholden to them. We see the politicians just fall in lockstep with these people and their whims, and whatever they say goes. And the world's gotten to be a very evil place. My whole life I've just watched things devolve into an anti-egalitarian society. After JFK tried to give the American people an egalitarian society through sound currency, which would have created a rising tide of prosperity that would have lifted everybody's ship, regardless of your trade, whether it's considered skilled or unskilled, or valuable or not valuable. It wouldn't have mattered. Sound currency would have been currency. By definition, that would have been worth more every day. Your work week would have been in continual decline. But you understand why the people at the top rule over us. Because it's not because they're smarter, it's because they're meaner. It's because there's no boundaries. There's nothing they wouldn't do to keep control over the planet, over the people of the earth. Because they don't even really care about the planet. It's keeping control over the masses, the population, the slaves. In other words, they could put on their nice suits and ties and get out there and look all sharp and act all important, but they're doing nothing useful for humanity. Has any one of them ever pounded